नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरये। शुभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तम श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्ठिकी। So continuing with the discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 11, today we're starting new chapter, chapter 14. Lord Krishna explains the yoga system to Shri Uddhava. Text 1 onwards. Shri Uddhava Vacha Vadanti Krishna Shreyansi Bahuni Brahmavadina Tesham Vikalpa Pradhanyam Utaho Eka Mukhyata. Shri Uddhav said, "My dear Krishna, the learned sages who explain Vedic literature recommend various processes for perfecting one's life. Considering these varieties of viewpoint, my Lord, please tell me whether all these processes are equally important." I think I'm supposed to mute everybody. Forgot. Okay. So whether all these processes are equally important or whether one of them is supreme. So previous chapter, although it was long time back, the Hans avatar answers the questions of the sons of Brahma. So Hans avatar, we know the four Kumaras, they saw Lord Hansa and they asked him questions, ultimately ended up with that transcendental loving and devotion that is the best process. Now Uddhavji is asking Krishna, same question. This is all part of Uddhav Gita. So in order to clearly establish the exalted position of Bhakti Yoga or pure devotion service to the Supreme Lord, Shri Uddhav requests Lord Krishna to identify the Supreme among all processes of self-realization. So not all Vedic processes lead directly to the ultimate goal, pure love of God. Some only gradually elevate the consciousness of the living entity. For the purpose of giving a general outline of the process of self-realization, sages may discuss the various methods of elevation. But when the time comes to ascertain the most perfect process, the secondary methods must be cleared from the path. So Uddhavji now wants to make sure. Of course, Uddhavji knows he's asking all these questions for our benefit. So which is the best method? Which is a direct method? Bhakti Yoga, everywhere, Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, it's explained clearly. But since everybody is not on that level, everybody is thinking differently, and this is the beauty of Sanatana Dharma actually. It gives everybody a chance to make progress according to his level of consciousness. But categorically, which is the best? Bhakti Yoga is the best. Slowly, people can come to that level of Bhakti Yoga. But not everybody is at that level. So they all say, oh, yoga is better, karma is better, samaj seva is better, or meditation is better, whatever they say. Ultimately, it's the Bhakti Yoga that's the best. Krishna also says in Bhagavad Gita, here also he has said that earlier, now he will again say the same thing. So Uddhavji is further saying, Bhavato dahrita swamin bhakti yoga anapekshita nirasya sarvata sangam yena tvaya vishen manah. My dear Lord, you have clearly explained the process of unalloyed devotion service by which a devotee removes all material association from his life, enabling him to fix his mind on you. It's now clearly established that pure devotion service is the supreme process of fixing the mind in the supreme truth, Lord Krishna. The next point to be clarified is this: can everyone practice this process, or is it limited to an elite class of transcendentalists? In discussing the relative advantages of different spiritual processes, one must immediately ascertain the goal of spiritual life and then isolate the process that actually awards this goal. So processes must be defined in terms of primary and secondary functions. A method that gives the highest perfection is primary, whereas processes that merely assist or enhance the primary function are considered secondary. The mind is most flickering and unsteady. So the only way to enable a devotee or a transcendentalist to fix his mind on Krishna is by devotion service, Bhakti Yoga, clearly said here by Uddhavji. Other processes are secondary, which can help the primary process. Primary process is, again, the purpose is to serve Krishna. But until the mind is controlled or mind is engaged in service of Krishna, or mind is engaged in Krishna, we cannot serve Krishna. So this is, it's mentioned in the purport. The mind is most flickering and unsteady. Therefore, by clear intelligence, one must fix oneself in progressive mode of life, and thus one can achieve the absolute truth in this lifetime. This is the sober purpose of Lord Krishna's conversation with Sri Uddhava. The mind is most flickering and unsteady. So what to speak of all these meditators? How can they control the mind? Maybe they can control, even that is also maybe, for 1 hour or half an hour when they are in the meditation. What about rest of the time? It's not that easy. But for devotee, he can be in devotion service 24 hours a day, whether he is sitting down and chanting or not. But the devotional service means any service done for Krishna. So mind can be absorbed in all the services that are done for Krishna. And through the services, mind can be absorbed in Krishna. And that is devotional service. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha, Kalena Nashta Pralaya, Vaniyam Vedya Sangita, Mayado Brahmane Prokta, Dharmo Yasyam Madatmaka. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, by the influence of time, the transcendental sound of Vedic knowledge was lost at the time of annihilation. Therefore, when the subsequent creation took place, I spoke the Vedic knowledge to Brahma because I myself am the religious principles enunciated in the Vedas. So here, clearly it is said, Vedas were given by Krishna to Brahmaji. And then slowly, it came down from Brahmaji to his disciple, to his son Manu, and then further down. And then finally, Ved Vyasji compiled the Vedic literature. He wrote it down. Lord Krishna explains to Uddhava that although many processes and concepts of spiritual realization are described in the Vedas ultimately recommend devotion service to the Supreme Lord. Lord Krishna is a reservoir of all pleasure, and his devotees directly enter into the Lord's Aladaniya, pleasure-giving potency. Somehow or other, one must fix one's mind in Lord Krishna. And that's not possible without devotion service. One who has not developed his attraction to Lord Krishna cannot restrain the senses from inferior engagements, since other Vedic processes do not actually award Lord Krishna to the practitioner. They cannot offer the highest benefit in life. The transcendental sound of the Vedas is itself the highest evidence, but one whose senses and mind are entangled in sense gratification and mental speculation, and whose heart is therefore covered by material dust, cannot directly receive the transcendental Vedic message. Thus, one cannot appreciate the exalted position of devotion service to the Lord. Devotional service offers the highest benefit, but not everybody will come to devotional service. Bahunam janmanam ante gyan mamam. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. And one whose mind is not engaged in the service of Krishna through devotion service, it's very difficult for him to control the mind. Krishna further says, Ten prokta svaputraya manve purva jayasa tato bhigvadayo agrinan sapta brahma maharshaya. Lord Brahma spoke this Vedic knowledge to his eldest son Manu. So eldest son Manu, that was the first Manu in Brahma's day of life is Swayambhuva Manu. So he gave it to Swayambhuva Manu. And the 7 great sages headed by Bhrigu Muni then accepted the same knowledge from Manu. So everyone engages in a certain way of life based on one's own nature and propensities. Bhakti Yoga is a natural activity of one whose nature is completely purified by association with the Supreme Lord. Other processes are meant for those whose nature is still affected by the material modes. And thus such processes, along with their results, are themselves also materially contaminated. So other processes like Karma Yoga or Hatha Yoga or Jnana Yoga, still affected by the material modes. Why? Because those processes, one tries to make advancement based on one's own capabilities, based on one's own strengths, his own cultivation, but not Bhakti Yoga. Devotional service to the Lord, however, is a pure spiritual process. And by executing it with a pure consciousness, one comes directly in touch with the personality of Godhead, who describes himself in the Bhagavad Gita as Pavitram Idam Uttamam, the supreme pure. So Krishna is supreme pure and the process is supreme pure. Pure means no tinge of karma or jnana. Nothing added in it. That is why it's supreme pure. The system of parampara or disciplic succession is illustrated in this and the previous verse. The spiritual masters in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movements are part of such a disciplic succession, and through them, the same Vedic knowledge spoken by Brahma to Manu is still available. Brahma gave the knowledge to Manu, Manu gave to Ikshvaku, and it came further down. Manu Ikshvaku Brahmet. And through the disciplic succession, and it's given in the introduction to Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada has given how the knowledge came down. Of course, the same knowledge was broken, the succession was somehow broken, and then through Vedvyasi, it again came down. Tebhya pitribhyastat deva danav goyaka manushya siddha gandharva savidyadhar charana kin deva kinara naga raksha kim purushadaya bhavayas tesham prakrityo rajah sattva tamam bhuvaha yavir bhutani bhityante yuhutanam patayas tatha yatha prakriti sarvesham chitra vacha sravantihi. From the forefathers headed by Bhrigu Muni and the other sons of Brahma appeared many children and descendants who assumed different forms as demigods, demons, human beings, Guyaks, Siddhas, Gandharvas, Vidyadhar, Charan, Kimdevas, Kinnars, Nag, Kimpurusha, and so on. All of the many universal species, along with their respective leaders, appeared with different natures and desires generated from the 3 modes of material nature. Therefore, because of different characteristics of the living entities within the universe, there are great many Vedic rich mantras and rewards. So there are all kinds of living entities. Here it is a different characteristics, or they could be different sanskara they have different level of consciousness. That's why to uplift them, there are different Vedic rituals, mantras, rewards, but not all the rituals are same as devotion service. Devotion service is way beyond any Vedic karmakandya rituals. But those who are following those rituals, they think that they are the best, they know the best, but not according to scriptures. If one is curious why Vedic literatures recommend so many different methods of worship in advance, the answer is given here. Sometimes those who don't have knowledge, they try to make fun of Vedic literature, Vedic processes. Now, why this? Why that? So they say, oh, it's all confusion in Hinduism. It's all confusing, very confusing. It's not confusing. It just everybody has different level of consciousness. So they follow the process according to their level of consciousness. Simple as that. To make progress, gradually make progress. Bhrigu, Marichi, Atri, Angira, Pulasya, Pula, and Kratu are the 7 great Brahman sages and forefathers of this universe. The Kimdevas are a race of human beings who are like the demigods, completely free from fatigue, sweat, and body odor. Seeing them, one may thus ask, Kimdeva, are they demigods? So actually, this is how they're known as Kimdeva. Actually, they are human beings living on another planet within the universe. The Kinnars are so called because they're Kinchinnara, or a little like human beings. The Kim Nara, Kinnara, means are they Nara, are they human beings? The Kinnars have either a human head or a human body, but not both, combined with a non-human form. And then Kimpurushas are so called because they resemble human beings, and thus prompt the question, Kimpurusha, are these human beings? Actually, they are a race of monkeys who are almost like human beings. So Hanumanji is known as Kimpurusha, from Kimpurusha Loka. And Kinnar means little like human beings. But funny thing is, for the eunuchs in India, they call them Kinnar, that you are Kinnars. But that's not Kinnar actually. Kinnars come in the category of demigods. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur explains that this verse describes the varieties of forgetfulness of the Supreme Personality of God. The different Vedic mantras and rituals are especially meant for the different species of intelligent beings throughout the universe. But this proliferation of Vedic formulas indicates only the variety of mental illusion and a variety of material illusion, and not a variety of ultimate purpose. Ultimate purpose of the many Vedic injunctions is one, to know and to love the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Lord Himself is emphatically explaining this to Shri Uddhava. But since so many varieties of people are there, so different rituals are given. Evam prakriti vachitrya vidyante matyo nranam parampariyena keshanchit pashandam matyo apare. Thus, due to the great variety of desires and natures among human beings, there are many different theistic philosophies of life, which are handed down through tradition. There are also teachers who indirectly support atheistic viewpoints also. The word Keshanchit refers to those persons in various parts of the world who are ignorant of the Vedic conclusion and thus concoct many unauthorized and ultimately fruitless philosophies of life. Pashandamatya refers to those who directly oppose the Vedic conclusion. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has given the most interesting example. The water of the Ganges is always pure and very sweet. On the banks of that great river, however, there are several types of poisonous trees whose roots drink up the Ganges water from the soil and use it to produce poisonous fruits. Similarly, those who are atheistic or demoniac utilize association with Vedic knowledge to produce the poisonous fruits of atheistic or materialistic philosophy. So, nice example that Ganges water is not just very sweet, it's like Amrit. But if the poisonous trees are there on the banks of Ganges, they'll drink up Ganges water, but they produce poisonous fruits. So similarly, although Vedic knowledge coming from Krishna is the topmost knowledge, but those who are atheistic or materialistic, they only derive that kind of conclusion from Vedic knowledge. So everybody is different. But the point is, at least they're getting some knowledge of Vedas, some mercy of the Vedas also they're getting. So slowly, as Krishna himself says, Bahunam Janmanam, after many, many births, one comes, one who has knowledge surrenders unto me. Man Mahya Mohit Dhiya, Purusha Rishabh, Shreyo Vadanti Anekantam Yatha Karma Yatha Ruchi. Best among men, the intelligence of human beings is bewildered by my illusory potency. Thus, according to their own activities and whims, they speak in innumerable ways about what is actually good for people. So, unlike the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the individual living entity is not omniscient. Therefore, his activities and pleasures do not represent the whole truth. According to one's individual way of doing things, yatha karma, and one's personal preference, yatha ruchi, one speaks to others about what is good for them. Everyone thinks what is good for me is good for everyone. That's how Atmavat Matnyate Jagat. But how I think the world is, that's how it is. And what is good for me, that's good for everybody. But that's not how Vedas explain. Actually, the best thing for everyone is to surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, and thus realize one's eternal nature of bliss and knowledge. Without knowledge of the absolute truth, many so-called learned people are whimsically advising other whimsical people who also lack perfect knowledge of the actual goal of life. So, actual goal, if I don't know, I'll explain my own way to others, because this is what I think is actually, or the real goal, or the ultimate goal of life. That goes with I think only, not absolute knowledge. It's I think means relative knowledge we all get. Even coming to devotion service, people have different ideas. Some will say chanting is the most important. Some will say service is most important. Some will say reading is most important. Maybe decorating the deities is most. Cooking for the deities is most important. Constructing temples is most important. Preaching is most important. Book distribution is most. Which one is most important? They all are devotional service. They all are on absolute level. Now it's all individual's preference. So even in devotional service, there could be so many differences. What to speak of outside devotional service? So everybody speaks according to his or her consciousness level. And in a way, everybody is right, because it's all relative truth. It's not absolute truth. So it's relative truth. But we have to find out what's the absolute truth. Absolute means good or true for everybody. Whether we accept it or not, that's up to us. But it is good or true for everybody. And this is what Uddhavji is trying to ask Krishna. So I guess we can stop here. See anybody has any questions or comments. Okay, so we'll stop here. You all have a safe and wonderful day. Hare Krishna. Jai Srila
Hare
Prabhupada.
Krishna, Guruji.
Thank
Thank
you,
you very much.
Prabhuji. Hare